So this is our log line. Two friends search for home becomes their quest to survive a dying world. And we'll go more into that, but this game is about two young friends and their sort of development as characters and their interaction with a really amazing world. So just to get the facts out of the way on Homeward, it's a single-player 2D game, as you can see. We're using platform mechanics based on relative gravity systems that are actually modeled after astronomical bodies, but on a sort of smaller scale and a faster scale. But that mechanic is entirely utilized for our focus, which is essentially discovery and exploration in front of puzzles and timing challenges. Also, as I mentioned before, the play is very focused on switching between two central mechanics, between our main character Milo and our main character Daisy, which we'll get into soon. And most importantly, Homeward is a game for children and adults. We were recently talking about the target demographic for it, and I think that the best word for it is the Adventure Time target demographic, which is the 7 to 14 kids, kind of like Saturday morning cartoons, and just get a sense of awe in it, and 20 to 27 who are like kind of okay with growing up and out of their angsty teen phase and want to really revisit cartoons now that they're comfortable that they're adults.
Right, so let's talk about the story. I've been trying to tell the story for so many times, and every time it fails. I'll try one more time. So we start with, so our main character lives with other humans, live on these planetary system, which are, their planets are like this. It's very colorful, very small, due to reasons we don't know yet. So they travel around. This is the ship, which is one of the main characters, that is called Daisy, and Milo, of course, is in the ship because he cannot exist in outer space. So they travel in their planetary systems, and this one time when they're supposed to, they're finished their journey and supposed to go home, and something happened. All right, they crashed. Apparently, they drove on somewhere exotic, and they just crashed. And Milo was looking really kind of, where am I? And Daisy's kind of stuck in the center of a planet. So Milo has to go to get her out. And by getting her out, he discovered that there's actually something wrong with the planets. Like there's nobody here. There's architectures, and also there's something like a machine in the center of the planet that doesn't look like a planet. They don't know why. So they have to move on in the journey. So they travel from one planet to another, looking for humans and for animals, for anything that can get them back to home, and for any facilities that can just grab them out of the horrible space planets they're on. And as the journey moves on, it goes out to another planet. This is the close look at our planets. This is actually one of the levels we're having in our game right now. So the player will actually land on that one and just kind of trying to go up there, but it's not possible. So he has to go tour around and try to find the switch or something that can just turn things around. And as the story goes on, he finds that the places he's been to has been getting more and more dangerous. It's kind of really hard for people to live on anymore. So he's thinking, no, I have to solve this problem, or otherwise I cannot find home. I will die if I find home. And there is where he started to grow up. Next page. And he was kind of also curious, why is all human gone? There's got to be a reason. Does this have something to do with the system that's broken down here? Is it something to do with the things that on inside of the planets? He thinks that I have to figure this out. So, well, he might find out and he might not, according to how our players play this game. But the kind of the core reasons lays in the sun, which is their sun, which is not a real sun. It's like the bushing that's providing energy for all the planets. So they go talk to the sun, and what do you know? They might actually get to the lands and they might not. Well, this story sounds like a really childish and lovely dream world-like story, but if you're expecting a happy ending, you're going to have a heart attack at the end stage.
So just to talk about the game, Homeward is an exploration game, first and foremost. And that's a term that's been thrown around a lot in the industry. And it usually means something like we put 800 flags in this game, and if you're an exploration type character, you can find all of them. And we want to really change that and make it a game that's about exploration, and exploration is the core mechanic and the fun of the game. And this comes to a lot of our design decisions. We have up here no levels, just places. We're not making sort of specific traps or puzzles or tests for the player. We're designing a world that is interactable and has these kinds of challenges for Milo to explore through, but is non-linear and will not force you to down a specific path or towards something that you can't solve. There's no campaign, just a map and a telescope. This is one of my favorite parts of the game, and it draws from really great open world games like Wind Waker before it, where there's no sort of next level or progression between it. It's you go back home, you take out your map and your telescope, and you pick somewhere else in the sky, and you go there. There's no text and no dialogue. We wanted to do this originally because we wanted it to be for everyone and transcend language barriers, but it's sort of started to become an art style. And the way that we're reconciling that fact is by having characters express their ideas and emotions pictorially. So, of course, the one main theme of this is going to be Milo saying home. And at first, his home will be drawn as a beautifully rendered exact version of his home, but as it goes on and his emotional state progresses, you can only imagine how it will change throughout the game. We want to validate every way that you can play this game, and that's a big part of why we're pitching it for children as well, is oftentimes children don't want to do what the game designers have set out for them. They don't want to jump, they want to figure out something else, and we want to really incorporate that into our gameplay. So essentially, it's a non-linear open world that you can reach different end states in by pursuing different goals that are very wide, such as the more traditional one, which is you keep trying to find home and you stumble into the sun, to more sort of childish ones, like you see this great apocalypse happening and you're so attached to these animals that if you manage to save them all or collect them all yourself, you can have an arc and focus your gameplay on just sort of collection and interaction with these cute critters. And like many of the games we have here, there's no tiling. What we want to enforce with exploration being the core fun of it is that every time you go somewhere, it's something completely new, and there's new interactions and animations in that place. This lightly touches on one of our big keys for the game, which is animation heavy, which is to have these cinematic interactive moments where throughout the world, there's a lot of times where Milo and Daisy will stop and do something out of the ordinary that isn't just running or jumping or hitting switches, and interact with each other in sort of meaningful ways. I guess a good example of this that I've been telling to a lot of people is, as you're going through this abandoned planet, it's a little bit creepy, and they stop talking for a while. Milo passes a shoe store, and if you go in it, he goes in and he can loot a new pair of shoes, and Daisy will say, "What are you doing? We're trying to get going on." And just little things that build character. That while that's a more innocuous example, as the game goes on, more deep and meaningful and sort of emotionally provocative things that we hope will apply to kids as well as adults. So here's a couple of screenshots on the next 3 ones of the prototype we've been working on, just to give you an idea of the game. This is the introductory level and kind of the scale of it, where these planets are going to be very small, and as you see, Milo is oriented towards the center of it, and that's sort of with our relative gravity source, is that he constantly reorients. So part of the control scheme is about moving clockwise and counterclockwise rather than left and right as a more traditional platform, because all of our gravity sources are circular like this. And you can see a couple more. This is just another example. Go to the next one. Is it frozen on this one? Oh, here we go. So this is just another example of our level design and kind of the scope we wanted to do for it as well. But also what I like about this is it reinforces our camera angle that we're keeping through the whole thing. There have been a couple other relative gravity games. Of course, Mario Galaxy is a great one. But there's also been a couple 2D ones. And the consistent thing that they've done with them all is orient the camera to the player to prevent confusion. But when we take a more wide scope like this, and you can see multiple planets and really get a feel for it, even though they're these small planets, I think that keeping the camera angle like this is going to be a big design decision in the game. And the last one, that's just another gameplay photo from one of the simple puzzles we have in the game. But we go one more slide. Great. So I want to tell you a little bit about our team and how we do things, just so you can get an idea if you want to join us. It's really about initiative. And the reason that we're not going to say we're looking for any designers in the next page is because everyone on the team is contributing into the design. One of the biggest examples of this is in our level design, where oftentimes we'll say, this is what it looks like, but over here we just need an apartment block. And we'll hand that to the artist and say, this is how big the jump is, and make an apartment block that looks like people could live in it and has a reasonable amount of rooms. And that's the first priority, is building the world in a matter of design. So we're often passing it off to different people. I tell every team, if you think of something that belongs in the game, it will be in the game. That is the first priority. When we're working on it, what we want more than anything else is things that we think are cool and will benefit the environment. And because we're such a small studio, we can really afford this agility and moving in different directions design-wise. And so, finally, this is not something that we want to give you guys assignments for. We don't want someone who just wants a class and to get credit with it, and this looks like an easy game and get done with it. This is really a forum for people who are really passionate about games to express themselves in something awesome with a bunch of other talented people. You can meet, the rest of our team is mostly here, but the leads, art lead Alex Gudera and design lead Domino Canes, I hope I didn't butcher your name too much, is right there. And so finally what we need, So, like most of the teams, we're starved for artists, and we're going to the LCAT pitch as well. But we're looking for 2D environment and architecture artists. As you can see from some of those slides with the rough game art in them, that's kind of a modern 2D style is what we're going for. 2D character animators for the cinematic moments and interactive bits with Milo and Daisy. We're looking for a lead animator who is proficient enough in animation that they can know how to manage others on the team, because it's going to be a fairly large art and animation team. And finally, we need a three-dimensional mechanical designer and modeler. So for modeling machines and environments that we're going to mix in with the two-dimensional elements of the game as part of the terrain deformation in Daisy's gameplay. And finally, we need a technical artist. So this is a programmer who's got an interest in arts and implementing them in-game. So they'll be working with our sprite system, as well as maybe even writing some additional animation scripts and stuff like that. But basically just coordinating between the art team and the programming team and making sure everything's in and looking good. So thank you. This is our pitch for Homeward. And again, I'm Will Howarth.
Okay.
Usually, all the artists won't be here.
Most of the artists won't be here, so I would say total seats no more than 10. Yeah, at USC.
And obviously, you mentioned already your preference is SCV. You're going to work off your own laptops?
Yeah, most of our team is.
Okay. All right. And